Good afternoon, I'm Rita Chelly. This is Ontario Today. In this hour, parents and teenagers, how to get it right. That's our guest, Sue Johnston, accomplished family and couples therapist, also a mom. Let's go to Vivek. Go ahead, you're in Toronto.
Hi, how are you?
We're fine. Now, how are you relating to this, the idea, these demon dialogues?
Yeah, so my daughter is now 19, and the two of us are best friends.
Great.
And part of the reason for that is I was raised in a very strict kind of home.
Yeah.
And I was also spanked and punished.
Yeah.
And when I knew I wanted to have a kid, I decided I did not want any of that kind of stuff happening in my home.
Yeah.
And so I spent a couple of years before we even conceived really thinking deeply about what kind of dad I wanted to be.
Hey, that's great.
And I'm fortunate that I had the luxury to do that.
Yes.
And so from the time when I remember when my daughter was born, I'm looking into those eyes. I remember I almost could hear her saying to me that I'm going to hate you if you don't treat me differently than the normal way.
Yes.
And so in my home, there was never any punishment. There were never any consequences. Everything that we did was about collaboration and communication, and everything was decided together as a family.
So when you say no consequences, that might get, a little bit of contrast with Jane before you. So she did have consequences, but they sounded fair. What insight do you bring on that? Like when you say, what is...
Right, well, the thing for me was I wanted my daughter to do things that were right because they felt like they were right, not because she was afraid of what the consequences would be. And because I believed in her natural goodness. I believed that she had the inner capability to know what was right, to feel empathy, to feel love, and to want the mutual benefit for everybody.
Yeah,
so give us an example.
You had trust in that. That's amazing. Yeah.
But give us an example.
Exactly.
Vivek, she's 19. Like, what's the story you think of when you tell that story? Like, what is it? Like, I don't know how young or what is it when you were helping her be a good person?
Sure. Well, it happens all the time. One of the ones that I often talk about, one thing, I actually am a parent educator as well, and I talk at conferences, and I have a blog that I have almost 400 articles on. And one of the things, because it's worked so well for us, I want to share it with other people. I want them to have beautiful relationships with their kids too, right?
Good.
And one of the things is when my kid was like 10 or something like that, she came home and said that she wanted to do graffiti. And she had seen it somewhere or somebody talked about it. And so rather than start giving her a lecture about why graffiti is wrong and why she shouldn't be doing it, I said to her, okay, let's do it. I asked her why does she want to do it, and she said, I don't know, it just seems like something exciting and dangerous to do. And I said, well, there's nothing wrong with wanting to do something exciting and dangerous. It's natural. I certainly grew up as a teenager. I did exciting and dangerous things. And so we talked about it. We figured out how is this going to work. But at the same time, I said, well, what do you think the results of doing graffiti are going to be, and who is it going to affect, and what does that mean to you? And so we talked about it, and we thought about it, and in the end, she made the decision herself that it was good enough for her to just get some canvas and do it on canvas.
Yes.
And the reason for that is she processed on her own that she was going to be damaging someone else's property, and that the benefit she was going to get maybe wasn't as worthwhile as the cost that was going to be.
Well, and it's getting into sort of what you were talking about, how building empathy also in your children early on.
Yes, but what really hits me is that this is a style of parenting where there's lots of attention going to the child, lots of respect and lots of trust in them, right? Which is built on a relationship from the time the child is little. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work out that way. Some parents are overwhelmed. Some parents mums, for example, end up getting depressed after their kids are born.
Well, not every kid is going to come home and say, I'd like to go deface someone's property. And tell you what they're thinking,
no,
right?
Some kids just go and act out.
Right.
So it gets tricky. I think one important thing to make here is, yes, this style of parenting is amazing and wonderful and works. The bottom line is, for most of us, we do get stuck in these negative demon dialogues with our kids. They can self-perpetuate if we don't catch them. The important thing that we know in the research, the same as in couples, is that as long as you can repair them afterwards, that's the thing that really matters.